Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
They called themselves the Three Musketeers, but today, together with a fourth man, they were convicted of plotting to carry out terror attacks on police or military targets in the UK. They were arrested last August in an undercover police operation, but there's been criticism of the sting and the way evidence was presented in court. Our Home Affairs correspondent Darshana Soni reports.
An indistinct industrial unit in Birmingham, the perfect cover. Behind the red metal doors, MI5 set up a fake courier company and offered jobs to suspected terrorists. Kawab Hussain and Naweed Ali live next door to one another. They've accused the police of entrapment. They were already under surveillance, but officers needed to get closer to their targets.
The trial revealed a fascinating insight into the tactics used by the security services. The suspects were employed here on 0 hours contracts and paid £100 a day cash in hand. The man they knew as their boss, Vincent, would eventually give evidence against them from behind a screen to protect his real identity. It was an unusual operation, but it was also a risky operation.
It's immensely complex. You have to have a whole strategy and a whole system where you build the company, you actually make sure that the computer systems work, that the telephone systems are answered by people who are also playing in the game effectively. And it's incredibly stressful for the police and security services who are undercover making this whole operation work.
Hussain and Ali had been associating with a man from Stoke who worked in a takeaway, Mohabir Rahman. The three of them set up a private group on the encrypted messaging app Telegram. They jokingly called themselves the Three Musketeers, but the prosecution argued that their conversations were far from humorous. They shared extremist material, including the Al-Qaeda magazine Inspire. They researched details of previous terror attacks, and they urged one another to take action. But was there any evidence of an actual plot?
We can be absolutely confident that these men were extremists. I mean, they had an extreme ideology. They wanted to use violence in pursuit of their ideology, and had they not been stopped, there was no doubt they would have carried an attack somewhere in the United Kingdom.
Keeping tabs on the suspects was difficult because they had knowledge of counter-surveillance. They limited phone conversations and met in open places where they couldn't be overheard, including this park. Here they were photographed with the fourth suspect, Tahir Aziz from Stoke, who was also convicted today. And the reason they knew how to evade police? Because it wasn't the first time they had come to their attention. The Three Musketeers had already served time for terrorism offences. Hussain and Ali for travelling to a training camp in Pakistan, and Rahman for possessing terrorist publications. In fact, they met inside, but it seems their prison time did not rehabilitate them.
They've gone in for terrorist-related offences, and they've come out and offended again. So it goes to show that de-radicalisation programmes in prison are not working. And also the other concern, and something that has been of concern to me, is the reintegration of these convicts or inmates when they come back out into the community.
The undercover operation came to a head last August when Ali was sent on a fake delivery. Officers took the chance to search his car. Hidden under the seat, a sports bag with an imitation handgun, a cleaver with the word kafir or unbeliever scratched onto it, and a partially constructed pipe bomb. And yet there were no fingerprint matches linking the men to the bag. Police ordered it to be retested during the trial, and a partial DNA match with Hussain was found on a roll of tape. In court, the men claimed that Vincent, the undercover officer, had planted the bag in Ali's car. There were inconsistencies in the officer's testimony, and it almost led to the CPS discontinuing the trial. West Midlands Police had denied the entrapment claims.
But the force did accept criticism of some of its detectives after it emerged that they had had improper contact with Vincent about his evidence in court. In one text message, Vincent promised them that he would give an Oscar-winning performance on the witness stand.
In an operation this complex, this challenging, using new techniques and ways of trying to deal with the threat, it's likely we've made mistakes. But making a mistake is not evidence of corruption, it's evidence of a mistake.
But the perception of those mistakes will matter in a city where the counter-terrorism unit has faced previous controversies amongst some communities.
And the Muslim community, this will just add to their suspicions?
Yeah, not only will it add to the suspicions of this community, but the wider community, but also elements that are already suspicious that often we need to engage with. This is why it's important that certainly for police officers, certainly for a police department, to be squeaky clean and to be held to account by the very same standards that anyone else would.
The force says it has learnt from this operation, but insists that as the tactics used by terrorists evolve, so too will theirs. In the months since these men were arrested, they say, 6 further plots have been foiled across the UK. The self-styled Musketeers were remanded in custody and will be sentenced tomorrow. Darshna Soni, Channel 4 News, Birmingham.
The worrying notion that our prisons are breeding grounds for Islamist terrorism was given new weight today at the end of a trial of 4 men who wanted to kill police officers or military personnel. 3 of them had met in prison. They called themselves the 3 Musketeers, which suggests a decidedly shaky grasp of both history and literature. But behind that romantic nickname was serious evil. It's hard to think of how else to put it, really, and serious terrorist hardware too. A pipe bomb and a meat cleaver. Those weapons were discovered during a complex police operation that attracted accusations of entrapment. Such were the security concerns around the case. It was held virtually in secret. Only now can it be revealed that 2 of the terrorists had been in contact with the infamous extremist preacher Anjem Choudhury.
Their plan was to attack the military or the police, but it was foiled by one of the most elaborate counter-terrorism operations of recent times. 3 of them called themselves the Musketeers, but their swashbuckling nickname was deceptive. A few months out of prison and under surveillance, raised in the Midlands, inspired by Al-Qaeda, jailed in Belmarsh, now monitored by MI5. It ended with a raid at a lockup in Birmingham. It's here that investigators had set up a fake courier company. They decided that to catch their suspects, they should employ them. 2 were taken on as drivers. The sister of one of them told News at 10 how he'd grown suspicious of his boss, who'd insisted he took a job at Hero Couriers, but never guessed that he was really an undercover police officer.
We just encouraged him. We never ever once thought for a second that this was some sort of fake game. It's only once when he got arrested that me and my brother started searching Hero's company and nothing came up. And we just sat there and thought, oh my days, is this like all a setup? And we still didn't want to believe that it's a setup.
A secret stash of weapons was discovered in one of their cars. A homemade pipe bomb, an imitation handgun, a meat cleaver, the word kafir or non-believer etched onto the blade. All discovered in a plastic bag from JD Sports. CCTV footage shows 2 of the men with that bag as they walked through a train station in Birmingham. A few days later, they were arrested. The police said they needed an operation this sophisticated because their suspects were so aware of surveillance tactics.
The reason why we had to go to the lengths we had to do in this very difficult operation is because of their background, because they had terrorist training, they did understand police tactics, they were counter-surveillance aware in terms of the way they conducted themselves. So we needed to stay one step ahead.
The group's leader was Khabayb Hussein, who prosecutors say had called for a fully fledged war with Europe. He and his friend Naweed Ali were convicted in 2012 after trying to join a terror training camp in Pakistan together. In prison, they met Mohibur Rahman, jailed for possessing bomb-making instructions. And after their release, they referred to themselves as the 3 Musketeers and began plotting an attack, bringing in a 4th man, Tahir Aziz, described by prosecutors as a hardline ISIS supporter. Tonight, Kubayb Hussein's father told ITV News he cannot believe his son is guilty.
There's no way he could ever plan. He hasn't even got the capabilities, you know what I mean? He couldn't even probably put a plug together, yeah? Never mind to come up with ideas like that.
The defence had claimed that weapons were planted by rogue officers to frame the suspects. That's been dismissed, but there will be a review of a unique operation that's raised familiar flags about the threat from terrorism in Britain today.
And Rohit is here with me now. We've had so many of these cases, haven't we, really, let's be honest, or so many people radicalised over the last 10 years. When you look at people like this in a case like this, what do you think the turning point really might have been?
Well, I must say that even after 4 months of evidence in this case, there is no answer to that question that is either simple or clear. There is one clear thread, though, a common thread with so many cases like this, which is the apparent role of prison, a place where 3 of these men should have been de-radicalised. It appears once again that prison has become an incubator for extremists. You know, some of these men knew that prison is the place to plot when it comes to terrorism offences. Something else that's familiar here, which is the role of a one man, Anjem Chowdhury, who appears to have been in contact over text message with 2 of these men. They had been arranging a meeting a few months before their arrest. It's not clear whether that meeting actually took place. This was an extraordinary case. Part of it was heard in secret, and a mammoth security operation to try and find out what these men were doing. And these 4 men will be sentenced in the morning.
OK, Rohit, thank you very much indeed. We'll talk about that tomorrow.
I've been getting away with it all my